The silence of a typical Sydney morning was shattered just after sunrise on Tuesday, December 2nd, by the one sound every criminal dreads hearing at their doorstep. Police search warrant, open the door. Police, open the door. The shouts echoed simultaneously across the city, from the high-rise luxury of Barangaroo to the suburban streets of Marylands and George's Hall. This was not a routine checkup, it was a synchronized, military-grade takedown. In one of the most significant moves against Sydney's underworld in recent history, Task Force Falcon unleashed the full weight of the law, executing a sweeping day of action under Strike Force Kursley. Nearly 150 officers moved into position before the city had fully woken up. The operation was a massive logistical feat, led by the seasoned detectives of Falcon, but backed by the sheer brute force of the Raptor Squad, specialist regional units, and the analytical power of the NSW Crime Commission. What followed was a coordinated surge of raids, compliance checks, and arrests that stretched like a net from the central business district deep into the western suburbs. Pen warrants were executed with precision across a laundry list of locations including East Hills, Bankstown, Bardwell Park, and North Sydney. The message was clear: there is no safe haven, whether you are hiding in a multi-million-dollar apartment or a suburban family home. While the tactical teams were breaching doors, other officers were simultaneously carrying out 11 firearm prohibition order checks at properties in Roselands, Concord, and Millers Point. This was not just about finding weapons, it was about disrupting the comfort of the criminal elite. By the time the sun had set on that Tuesday, the 6 alleged members or associates of a shadowy criminal network known as the Afghani Crew were in custody. This group, relatively new to the headlines but terrifyingly effective on the streets, had become a primary target for law enforcement. But Strike Force Kursley was not just looking for drugs or guns, they were hunting for the lifeblood of organized crime: money. In a strategic pivot that highlights modern policing tactics, the operation aimed to cripple the network financially. As the handcuffs clicked on wrists, the NSW Crime Commission was already moving to freeze more than $12 million worth of suspected criminal assets. This is a critical evolution in the war on gangs. In the past, police might arrest a foot soldier, only for the syndicate to bail them out and continue business as usual. Now they are stripping the assets that fuel the lifestyle, ensuring that crime does not pay. The raids revealed the stark reality of this new underworld order. It is not just about street corners anymore. It is about sophisticated networks operating in the shadows of legitimate business. As the dust settled on the morning's chaos, it became clear that this was only the opening salvo. The police had successfully breached the perimeter of the Afghani Crew, but the secrets hidden inside those properties, and the digital trails left on seized devices, would reveal a criminal enterprise, far more complex and wealthy than the public had realized. The crackdown had begun, and for the targets of Task Force Falcon, the nightmare was just starting. At the center of this financial storm was a man whom police allege sat at the apex of the network's money laundering operations. In the quiet, leafy suburb of George's Hall, officers arrested a 35-year-old man identified as a Legion D to his neighbors, and the casual observer, he appeared to be nothing more than a successful, wealthy Sydney businessman. He drove the right cars, wore the right clothes, and lived in a property that screamed success. However, investigators claim this carefully curated image was a facade designed to mask a dark reality, that he was quietly operating within the city's underworld, with close links to the Afghan Crew. A Legion D is now facing a litany of serious charges that paint a picture of white-collar sophistication meeting street-level criminality. He stands accused of commercial drug supply, dealing in the proceeds of crime, drug possession, and deception offenses. Crucially, he was also charged with refusing to comply with digital evidence orders. In modern organized crime investigations, the smartphone is the new safe house. By refusing to unlock his devices, police allege he attempted to shield the inner workings of the syndicate from scrutiny. But perhaps the most damaging allegation is the deception. Police accuse him of falsifying his income to secure a multi-million-dollar home loan, effectively washing dirty money through the legitimate property market. This arrest triggered an immediate and aggressive response from the NSW Crime Commission, which launched unexplained wealth proceedings. This is one of the most powerful tools in the state's legal arsenal. Unlike standard criminal charges where the burden of proof lies with the prosecution, unexplained wealth laws flip the script. They demand that the target prove their assets were acquired legally. If the numbers on the tax return do not match the Lamborghini in the driveway, the state can seize the assets. In this case, authorities are aiming to claw back more than $12 million they believe was derived entirely from criminal activity. During the raid on his home, Officers seized multiple high-end vehicles from his luxury hire fleet cars that investigators allege he allowed members of the Afghan crew to use. This seemingly small detail suggests a symbiotic relationship. The businessman provides the flash and the wheels, while the crew provides the muscle. Initially, police moved quickly to refuse his bail, citing the severity of the alleged crimes and the flight risk posed by his access to significant funds. However, the legal battle over Alameddin's freedom was immediate and fierce. His legal team vehemently insisted that he is not part of the criminal group, framing him as a legitimate entrepreneur caught in the police dragnet. They put forward a massive $500,000 surety to secure his release. The court accepted this argument, granting him bail, but under extremely tight conditions. He is now strictly limited in his use of encrypted apps and is prevented from contacting specific individuals. While he may be out on the streets for now, his assets remain frozen, and the specter of the crime commission looms large, threatening to dismantle the fortune he allegedly built on the back of Sydney's drug trade. As the operation unfolded across the city, it became clear that the tentacles of this network reached far beyond just shadowy financiers. The arrests revealed a cast of characters that seemed ripped from the pages of a crime novel, highlighting the seductive and dangerous allure of the underworld lifestyle. In Bankstown, the tactical teams moved in on 38-year-old Nadal Alameddine, taking him into custody over alleged weapon offenses. Simultaneously, in Barangaroo, Sydney's playground for the ultra-rich officers arrested 27-year-old Muhammad Makud on charges of drug supply and prohibited substances. But it was the arrest in Sanssouci that captured the most attention and underscored the strange diversity of those drawn into the orbit of organized crime. Nia Jackson Gamer, a 27-year-old woman, was arrested alongside Ahmed Gamrai, 22, amidst allegations involving firearms, weapons and drugs. Nia is not your typical criminal profile. She is a former beauty queen, crowned Miss Lebanon Immigrant Australia in 2016. Her fall from grace, however, had been public and steep. She had previously made headlines in 2018 when she was sentenced to 2 years in prison for supplying methamphetamine. Back then, the district court heard that her drug dealing was motivated purely by financial greed, supported by a trail of incriminating text messages. Her recent arrest suggests that the allure of the fast life was too potent to resist, pulling her back into a world where beauty serves as a mask for illicit activities. Inside the properties raided during Strike Force Kursley, police uncovered a vivid snapshot of the wealth and reach of the network. It was not just about the drugs or the weapons. It was about the lifestyle they purchased. Officers seized phones and encrypted devices alongside $21,000 in cash, luxury watches, and jewelry. Each piece collected was another pixel in the picture of an organized group living vastly beyond their legitimate means. The psychology here is telling these networks do not just want power. They want to be seen. They want the status that comes with heavy gold watches and diamond chains. Symbols that scream success in a world where silence is supposedly golden. The New South Wales Crime Commission then stepped in to deliver the final, crushing blow to the group's ego. They seized the most striking assets of the operation, the trophies of the trade. A Rolls-Royce Ghost worth approximately $600,000, a Lamborghini Huracan valued at another $600,000, and a 2024 BMW XM worth $300,000 were all loaded onto tow trucks. These vehicles are more than just transport. They are mobile billboards for the syndicate's power. By seizing them, police strike at the very heart of the gang's recruitment strategy. It is hard to sell the glamour of gang life to impressionable teenagers when the boss's Lamborghini is sitting in a police impound lot. Authorities quickly followed up with restraining orders, launching unexplained wealth proceedings worth a massive $12.4 million against the alleged ringleader from George's Hall. This operation marked a high-impact blow, demonstrating that Task Force Falcon is evolving. They understand that to truly dismantle a modern syndicate, you cannot just arrest the soldiers. You must confiscate the generals' fortunes. The sight of these luxury supercars being hauled away serves as a stark warning. In the end, the state has the power to turn a criminal empire into a police auction. While Strikeforce Kursley was busy dismantling the financial architecture of the syndicate, a parallel operation was uncovering a far darker and more visceral threat. Under the banner of Strikeforce Lam, authorities stumbled upon one of Sydney's most alarming underground secrets, a fully operational, industrial-grade weapons manufacturing ring. What began as a seemingly routine warrant execution in Bardwell Park quickly spiraled into a discovery that sent shockwaves through the force. Investigators did not just find a few stash guns. They found the factory floor itself, a sprawling network stretching across multiple suburbs designed to flood the streets with untraceable firepower. The scale of the threat became apparent during a raid on a storage unit in Kingsgrove. As officers rolled up the metal door, they were met with an arsenal fit for a war zone, not a suburban street fight. Inside, they located an AR-15 rifle, the civilian iteration of the military M16, infamous for its lethality and use in mass casualty events overseas. Beside it lay an SKS semi-automatic rifle and a Smith & Wesson revolver. But the hardware was only half the story. The raid also yielded 169 rounds of ammunition and a disturbing pile of 3D printed high-capacity pistol magazines. This fusion of traditional heavy weaponry with modern 3D printing technology represents a terrifying evolution in gang warfare, where criminals can simply print the accessories they need to increase their kill count. The investigation led police to a second, even more significant location, a commercial address on Forest Road in Arncliffe. Here, the true sophistication of the operation was laid bare. This was not a garage hobbyist setup. It was a full-scale underground weapons workshop. Police discovered an industrial CNC mill, a computer-controlled machine used to precision-cut metal, alongside a high-end 3D printer. The room was littered with the building blocks of murder, barrels, slides, magazines, and ammunition. Officers described this setup as a significant production site. The CNC mill is particularly worrying for law enforcement, because it allows the syndicate to manufacture the pressure-bearing components of firearms from scratch, creating ghost guns that have no serial numbers and are completely invisible to ballistics databases until they are used. Later that same day, the operation went mobile. A coordination of the police helicopter, highway patrol, and the dog squad descended on a white Toyota van traveling along Camden Valley Way. The takedown was swift. Inside the vehicle, officers found the finished product of this illicit supply chain: 2 privately made firearms hidden in a green duffel bag. They also discovered a folding semi-automatic style rifle in a gray box, banana clips fully loaded with rounds, and, perhaps most chillingly, 6 silencers. The presence of silencers suggests these weapons were not meant for self-defense. They were being delivered for specific, targeted assassinations. A 29-year-old man was pulled from the van, while a 39-year-old man was arrested at the Bardwell Park address. Both now face a long list of serious firearm charges, including possessing unregistered pistols and participating in a criminal group. They were refused bail, but the implications of their arrest remain. The case has exposed a sophisticated firearms pipeline operating out of suburban Sydney, proving that the underworld is no longer reliant on smuggling guns into the country. They are simply manufacturing them at home, using industrial machinery to quietly produce weapons of war for the highest bidder. The urgency of these operations is driven by a terrifying shift in the demographics of Sydney's hitmen. The police crackdown comes amid a troubling trend of youth recruitment, where teenagers are being lured into these networks as wannabe assassins via social media and encrypted platforms. It is a digital grooming process where the flash of cash and the notoriety of gang life are sold to impressionable minds, turning school kids into disposable foot soldiers. This demographic shift has contributed to a bloody timeline. Since 2021, Sydney has witnessed over 25 organized crime-related murders. While Task Force Falcon has successfully solved 20 of these cases, the violence continues to mutate. The Alameddine network, once a monolithic force in the city, is suffering from internal rifts, including the formation of splinter groups like G7, which has only intensified the chaos and paranoia on the streets. Into this fractured landscape stepped the Afghani Crew. Little was initially known about this shadowy group, but detectives now believe they have emerged as a fresh and ruthless hit squad, filling a vacuum created by the infighting. They are essentially mercenaries, hired to settle scores in a brewing underworld civil war between the Alameddine network and former loyal enforcers from corporate Tavarua, the KVT gang. Unlike traditional criminal families bound by blood or postcode loyalty, police say this crew has risen almost out of nowhere, operating with a chilling business model. They offer violent services for huge payouts while moving in and out of the gang conflict, like ghosts. They do not hold territory in the traditional sense. They hold contracts. They have been tied to several attempted hits throughout 2025, suspected of carrying out attacks on behalf of whoever pays the highest price. This mercenary nature makes them incredibly dangerous. They have no permanent allegiance, meaning they are just as likely to side with a syndicate on Monday as they are to strike against it on Tuesday. This unpredictability has destabilized the delicate balance of power in the underworld. Reports suggest that the group is feeding a growing pattern of ethnic-based tensions across the city, with Lebanese, Kurdish and Afghan factions now battling for control of the lucrative drug, money and distribution territories left vulnerable by recent police successes. Their appearance has forced police to widen the scope of their crackdown. It is no longer just about stopping one gang, it is about suppressing a multi-front war. The Afghani Crew represents a modernization of gang violence, specialized, mobile, and financially motivated, rather than ideologically driven. Their involvement has added fuel to an already volatile war, creating a scenario where violence can erupt anywhere, at any time, without warning. As the different factions jostle for dominance, the police have issued a stark warning: this new crew is an accelerant, and if they are not dismantled, the tit-for-tat shootings that plagued Sydney in previous years could escalate into open warfare on suburban streets. The raids were a start, but erasing a group that operates like a phantom requires more than just breaking down doors. It requires breaking the cycle of recruitment and profit that keeps them in business. Task Force Falcon was not born out of routine police procedure. It was forged in crisis. Fortabiterowi Papia stood up by the NSW Police State Crime Command in late May 2025. The task force was a direct and desperate response to a sudden, sustained surge in organized crime violence that threatened to turn Sydney streets into a shooting gallery. Ordered what began as a string of tit-for-tat shootings and firebombings between rival networks quickly threatened to spiral into a full-scale underworld war. The government and police leadership realized that the old way of doing things, fragmented squads chasing isolated incidents, was failing. In a decisive move, 13 separate strike forces were collapsed into one unified operation, given extraordinary resources and a single mandate: end the violence. Led by Detective Superintendent Jason Box, one of the state's most experienced homicide and organized crime investigators, Falcon now fields an army of more than 150 detectives and specialist force officers. It brings together the brute force of the Raptor Squad, the intelligence gathering of drug squad operatives, and the forensic accountants of the NSW Crime Commission. The strategy operates on two parallel fronts. First, there is the traditional investigative arm that pursues every murder, attempted murder, and arson with relentless forensic work. Second, and perhaps more visibly, is the proactive suppression arm. These are the officers conducting high-visibility patrols, stop and search operations, and immediate asset seizures the moment a target is identified. They are the ones kicking down doors before a trigger can be pulled. In the 7 months since its creation, the results of this unified front have been staggering. Falcon has charged dozens of individuals, seized tens of millions of dollars in cash, luxury cars and property, and dramatically slowed the pace of public place shootings. The message sent to Sydney's criminal networks is blunt and unambiguous. Every participant in the violence, from the 15-year-old lookout on an e-bike to the syndicate head who places the contract from a luxury penthouse, will be hunted. They will be arrested, and crucially, they will be stripped of the wealth that funds their wars. The state is effectively saying that the cost of doing business in Sydney has just become too high. However, while this crackdown represents a significant victory for law enforcement, experts warn against complacency. Sydney's underworld is historically resilient, akin to a hydra, where cutting off one head often leads to two more growing in its place. As the Alameddine network fractures and the Afghani Crew is targeted, new alliances are already forming in the shadows. The targeting of these specific groups signals a shift in focus toward emerging ethnic-based gangs, but the root causes of the violence remain largely unaddressed. As long as there is insatiable drug demand, economic inequality, and challenges within the immigration system, the recruitment pipeline will remain open. As investigations continue, the city holds its breath, hoping this operation marks the beginning of the end for these violent syndicates. But for now, the war for Sydney's streets has simply entered a new, more intense phase. If you are looking for more exciting and eye-catching regular bikie and organized crime updates, do not hesitate. Smash that subscribe button and spread the word rapidly. Hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments section below. We want to hear your take on the crackdown. You can also show your support by hitting the super thanks button to keep the grind alive and the updates rolling, or tap the yellow buy us a coffee button. Stay tuned, stay curious, stay awesome, and take care.